Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope there are gentlemen amongst us. I can see ladies here. Let me welcome you formally to Sidron Nigeria Limited-EDI training batch 21. I hope you all rested well over the weekend, and I hope you're all set for 1 week of fast-track training on entrepreneurship for the AGSMEIS loan scheme. We did start, as indicated in the joining instructions, that we'll start with a pre-lecture quiz. I hope you've seen it, and I hope you have done the quiz. We do all that to also give our other colleagues the opportunity of joining the class. We're supposed to be a class of about 25, but I can see that only about 4 of you have joined so far. So we'll look forward to the others joining us this morning. But we cannot continue to wait indefinitely. We're supposed to have just taken 10 minutes to do the test, the quiz, and it's way after more than 10 minutes now. So we'll just begin while the others come along subsequently. But this morning we were starting with the very first topic. It's our foundation laying subject for this training. It's on entrepreneurship. But before then, you find on your screen the picture of an elderly gentleman and a young lady, where he seems to be advising her that if your salary is your only source of income, you are one step away from poverty. Of course, that is it's a good advice to give this kind of time, not only abroad, but also locally here. We all know what our salary structure is like now. We all know that not too long ago, the government approved some minimum wage, increment in the minimum wage from 18,000 naira to 30,000 naira. Of course, with the corona pandemic, and then of course the biting inflation, we know what has happened to that minimum wage. It's as good as not been there for us at all. Inflation has eaten up most of that money. And then, of course, the purchasing power, as it were, continues to drop. All of that is compounded by the coronavirus pandemic, where the cost of production has skyrocketed. Then, of course, the challenges we have around the country today. We're verging, as it were, towards food insecurity. With all the crises we have in the country, the insecurity, people not being able to go to their farms, and all of those challenges. Of course, the advice then reminds us of what our labor union leaders always tell us. Now, our take-home pay cannot take you home. So what this suggests is that if we are salary earners, either in the public or private sector, there's one thing we need to do. We should not depend on only one source of income. We should try and strive as much as possible to have multiple sources of income, okay? Because without that, depending on just one source of income, might not be able to meet all of our expectations, all of our needs and challenges, and they continue to mount as it were in the country today. So we also like to join this gentleman in giving that advice by telling our participants, and we always like to start with this slide really, telling our participants that this is a very, very good advice. And of course, taking the step to join this training is a step in the right direction. It means that if you are currently employed or you are on your own, it simply says that you need another source of income to supplement what you currently earn. So that's what we try to emphasize, and that's why we always start this lecture with this slide. Okay, having said that, and I hope the advice is well taken, and I hope you take it to heart and work with it. Having said that, we will now go as the main subject of the day. Come on, okay. Sorry, just a minute. Let's sort out. All right, let me welcome you back again. We tried to attend to something on that is interrupting our screen. All right, so we'll start with the main topic of the day, which is entrepreneurship and skills acquisition for AGSMEIS. Entrepreneurship, the training that we're having is entrepreneurial training. So we need to lay the foundation for this entire course by defining and understanding the concept of entrepreneurship, what it is, what it entails, who is an entrepreneur, what he does, and of course, the kind of skills you require for entrepreneurship. Okay, this lays the foundation for all the other subsequent topics that will be taken. And we take a topic a day, take a topic each day. And for tomorrow, for example, after this, we'll start with topics like feasibility studies and business plan. And then we'll move on to financial planning and basic bookkeeping. Then move on to effective sales and marketing strategy. And then, of course, to business law, compliance requirements if you want to do business in Nigeria. And then we'll have a practical session on how to complete the AGSMEIS loan application form, which we distributed to you. And those who haven't seen it yet, of course, I'm sure before the end of this training, you will have a copy of that. So we'll put you through on how to complete that form and all the expectations therein. But this course, this very topic represents the very foundation, all the preliminaries that you need to know, and as you prepare for the other subjects to come in the subsequent days for the next 5 days. Right. Having said that, we'll start by looking at the training objectives. What are the training objectives for this very subject? First, understanding of AGSMEIS loan scheme, understanding what the AGSMEIS loan scheme is. I want to believe that you are familiar with what AGSMEIS is all about. If you are not, we'll break it down for you. To expose participants to the objectives, the components, and processes of achieving the goals of AGSMEIS, to understand the concept of entrepreneurship, to expose participants to the skills required for entrepreneurship, and then to prepare participants for a life of entrepreneurship. Okay, so that's basically what the objectives of this training is all about. understanding the concept of entrepreneurship, and then of course the skills required for entrepreneurship, and to emphasize the fact that entrepreneurship is not a short sprint. It's a lifelong venture. It's a marathon. It's something that when you start, you don't stop until you achieve the goals you set out to attain. Okay, I'm sure all of you, as you're starting this course today, you have some very lofty ideas about where you want to be, where you want the kind of business you want to do, you want to go into, and then where you want to be with that business in the next couple of years down the line. So, if you have that kind of mindset, then of course you know that entrepreneurship is not something that you start this year and end in a year or two. No, it goes all the way down, a long way up. Okay, we'll be looking at some of the major corporations we have today across the globe, and how they started, to show you how the life of entrepreneurship is all about. They started as small, and then of course ended up as major corporations, major multi-billion-dollar corporations today. So we'll have a look at that, and that's our own aspiration for you guys also, that by the time you start, you're starting small, you grow big. Like they say, from young acorns grow mighty oaks. So we hope to see that what you are sowing today as little acorns will grow up to be the mighty oaks of tomorrow. All right, so the next thing is let's look at the training outline. These are all of the subjects that we'll be looking at in the course of this presentation. First, defining AGSMEIS. We'll define what AGSMEIS is all about, then its objectives, its components, and then the processes of attaining its goals. Then defining entrepreneurship. What is entrepreneurship? What's the understanding of entrepreneurship? Who is an entrepreneur? What does an entrepreneur do? Okay, and then we'll give examples of some international and then local entrepreneurs that we know as we know them today. Okay, and then of course the types of businesses and vocational skills, the various types of businesses and vocational skills. Some of you have identified your own and you want to pursue a career in that. We will also present some other ones so that in case you haven't thought about that and you want to change your mind along the line before you go headlong into the current thinking, you might want to change your mind, then you have a look at that. Then we'll look at consideration before starting a business. Okay, before you start any business whatsoever, you want to consider certain things. Okay, you don't just jump into the field, jump into the business without taking certain things into consideration. There are quite a number of things that we need to do. You don't, because a friend of yours, a relation is successful in one line of business, and you think that you too can also just jump into that line of business and make a success of it. You don't know what things that individual has taken into consideration before going into that line of business. And without those considerations, of course, you might have run into some problems down the line. So hurdles in the path of starting a small business, anything we do in life, we find that there are barriers, there are challenges, there are hurdles that we might run across, and that's the reality of life. Life is not a smooth sailing surface. There are bumps, there are ups and downs, and there are rocky hills and mountains and valleys. All of those things apply also when you want to start a business. What are those hurdles? What are those challenges that we might run into? So we'll look at some of that. Then sources of funding of small and medium enterprises. What are the sources of funding small and medium enterprises? Okay, one of it basically is why you are here today. You are here at this program. Okay, you want to access funds. Okay, so this basically is one of the sources of funding, and then there are quite a number of others. So we'll be looking at all of those ones as we go along. Okay, right. So let's now start. So we will now start by defining AGSMEIS. Defining AGSMEIS. What is AGSMEIS? AGSMEIS is an acronym. An acronym is a word that you form with the first letters of the words in a sentence. Okay, so for AGSMEIS, AGSMEIS stands for Agribusiness Small and Medium Enterprises Investment Scheme. AGSMEIS. The AG stands for agribusiness, and then of course the SME, we all know SME, small and medium enterprises, and then the investment scheme. Okay, so the loan scheme standing for agribusiness is this AGSMEIS, whose initiative is it? It is an initiative of the Central Bank of Nigeria aimed at supporting the federal government agenda towards the promotion of agricultural businesses and small and medium enterprises as vehicles for sustainable economic development and employment. So, the AGSMEIS loan scheme is an initiative of CBN of Nigeria and then the Committee of Bankers. The bank which they established to run with this this scheme, the AGSMEIS loan scheme, okay, to manage it is the NISA Microfinance Bank. The NISA Microfinance Bank is owned by the Committee of Bankers, which has 50% shares in that bank. The CBN through NISA has 40% shares, and then NIPOST has 10% shares. And NIPOST shares is in the form of the office space it provides for NISA Microfinance Bank in all of its branches across the 774 local governments that we have in the country. Okay, those branches have not been opened in all of the local governments, but that is their hope, that is their aspiration, and that is the vision that they have. That's in due course, they will have a branch of the NISA Microfinance Bank in each of the post office bases in the 774 local government areas. They want it to be a rural bank, okay, providing banking services in the villages, in the localities, in all of the local government areas. And then, of course, providing access to easily affordable loans in all of these locations. So that's basically the whole idea behind setting up that bank. And of course, when we say it's an initiative of the CBN in supporting the federal government, the federal government policy of diversification of the economy. Okay, the federal government wants to diversify the Nigerian economy. We're all aware of the situation that we have in our economic sphere today. Nigeria's economy is a mono economy, dependent, as it were, on oil. And each time we have challenges in the oil sector, each time there is a hit on the oil sector, there is a problem, there is a challenge. Okay, Nigeria's economy takes a dip. We just came out of a recession in about 4 years ago, and just last week, Nigeria went into another recession again. Why is that? Because Nigeria's economy is dependent on the oil sector, on the oil economy. Okay, and each time there is a problem with that sector, Nigeria's economy takes a dip. Okay, we're all aware that the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, affected the entire world. Okay, first there was the lockdown of the entire world. Okay, all the major industries in China, in the US, EU shut down. Okay, and of course, all businesses grounded to a halt. International travels, as we know, it also came to a halt. Okay, we saw pictures of aeroplanes lined up in major international airports all over the world. We saw streets deserted in China and US and all over the places. Nobody was going to any work. And of course, the engine that drives these industries is the oil. It's petroleum resources. And the moment none of these industries is working, none of these international travels is taking place, none of economic activity is taking place, something happens. That means there is no purchase, no procurement of oil, and all those countries dependent on oil definitely will run into a problem. So most of the OPEC countries, the oil producing and exporting countries, ran into that challenge, and Nigeria was one of them. Okay, so the federal government over time has been talking about diversifying the economy because of this basic problem. Okay, and one of the ways, the areas that it believes that it can diversify the economy into is in agricultural business and SME, small and medium enterprises, because these areas provide the promises for development of the country, because these SMEs are the bedrock, as it were, of what we know today as some of the major industries that we have across the world. And Nigeria should not be left alone, should not be alone in trying to exploit the potentials of this area. Okay, so the government alone, the CBN and Committee of Bankers looked at it and said, well, the government alone cannot do this. There is a way that we can be able to support them. And one of the ways that we can be able to support them is to be able to provide support in the area of providing financing, okay, for these two key areas where the government can push its agenda of diversification. Okay, so that is why they came up with the idea of the AGSMEIS loan scheme, which is a collateral-free loan, okay, without collateral, without guarantors, and then at a very low interest rate. Okay, if you go to banks today and you're looking for loans, for example, today, you will be asked to pay about 26% as an interest rate. But here, the Committee of Bankers and CBN are introducing a bank that is giving out this kind of loans, collateral-free loans, at a 5% interest rate, actually 9%, but because of the COVID situation, the bank brought it down to 5%. It might take it back to 9% as for next year, but that is how low and soft that loan facility is. Okay, so when you compare it to what you find in commercial banks and other microfinance banks at 26 to 30% interest rate, and then you find an organization, a bank that is going to give you the same kind of loan at a very almost a giveaway interest rate, then of course you know what they are trying to achieve. They are trying to make sure that people have easy access to very affordable funds, loans for the purpose of growing their businesses. So that explains the initiative. That explains the reason why the CBN and the Committee of Bankers decided to come up with this loan scheme. Okay, so what are the objectives of AGSMEIS? So let's look at the objective of the AGSMEIS scheme. First and foremost, to ensure small and medium enterprises have access to finance. That's basically what I've just talked about. Okay, because one of the main problems that entrepreneurs, those who want to go into SMEs have, is access to funds, access to finance. I just mentioned now that if you want to access finance in the commercial banks or microfinance banks, you will be hit with an interest rate in the region of 26 to 30%. Okay, so providing access to finance is one of the main objectives of the AGSMEIS loan scheme, to generate much needed employment opportunities in Nigeria, to boost the managerial capacity of agribusinesses, SMEs as pipelines of growing enterprises that can become huge corporate organizations, and then to develop the agricultural value chain and ensure sustainable agricultural practices. Okay, let's look at the second bullet point, to generate much needed employment opportunities in Nigeria. We all know what the employment situation is in the country today. Well, so many of our young men graduating from tertiary institutions, universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education, and all of that, and on the streets looking for white-collar jobs. Some have been home for over 2-3 years, some up to 5-10 years, looking for that same line of employment. Okay, and then of course with the COVID situation, many of the industries that were in operation shut down. Banks will not shut down, and most of them in shutting down simply laid off their staff. We know of banks that shut down branches, and instead of deploying the staff in those branches to other branches, they simply shut down the branch and then laid off the staff. Okay, so compounding the situation of unemployment. So one of the objectives of AGSMEIS is, how can we help these unemployed people to become self-employed, to be able to employ others? Okay, so the AGSMEIS loan scheme, by providing finances, okay, will help these many young Nigerians who have not been able to find paid employment to be able to access the loan and then start their own businesses. Okay, and in the course of starting their own business, be able to also employ others. The whole idea of the loan really is that if you're able to, accessing up to 5 million, it's expected that you should be able to employ one person. If you're accessing up to 10 million, you should be able to employ about 2 people. Remember, one of the policy initiatives, hopes of government, again, is that it wants to take at least 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in the next 10 years. So this is one of the areas, this is one of the target areas, by providing in the necessary funds that we require for people to be able to access these funds and start their own businesses and then be able to employ others along the line. So that is one of the key objectives there. Okay, the third bullet point, to boost the managerial capacity of agribusinesses, SMEs. Okay, after I've outlined the various topics we'll be taking, and most of these topics are actually about how you manage your small businesses, okay? Boosting and improving your managerial skills and capabilities. So at the end of this training, the AGSMEIS loan scheme, the AGSMEIS scheme hopes to be able to, through this training, boost the managerial capacity of people who want to go into agribusinesses and SMEs, okay? And then developing the agricultural value chain. Agriculture is a key component of this scheme, okay? The AGSMEIS component, okay? The agribusiness component. And then the value chain, we're all aware of what the value chain is all about. Agricultural value chain is, agriculture is not just about farming, not just about crop farming. It's a whole chain, it's a massive industry, a massive sector, which starts from activities in the farms, okay, to the harvesting processes, to the marketing component, to the processing, okay, to the exportation. All of this composed of what we call the value chain. Okay. Previously, our agricultural practice in Nigeria and most of Africa actually has been subsistence farming. We find basically without any value addition. Okay, so the agricultural value chain is such that ensures that we just do not only export raw materials, but that we export this agricultural produce after some value addition. Okay, you produce, let's take the example of cocoa, for example. You produce and harvest the cocoa, and you don't just export the cocoa beans, but then you are able to process it up to a certain level so that by the time you are exporting it, you are getting some value. You're getting some value, you're adding some value to it, and that value addition also increases the price, the cost of procurement, of export. Okay, so that we don't just export raw cocoa beans, and then we begin to import its byproducts in the form of chocolates, in the form of cocoa tea, and all of those kind of products that come from cocoa. But we should be able to also process it up to this extent that, look, the cocoa beans have been processed and then broken down into several other components before we are able to export them on these various components. Okay, that is what it entails. Okay, so not just exporting raw materials, but processed raw materials with value addition that will be able to have more additional income in the process of exporting them. So that is, these are the main objectives of the AGSMEIS loan scheme. All right. Let me take a minute again, and then we'll clear something again from my screen. Just a minute, please. Come back to you. Video. So my video. Right. Hope I'm back. You can hear me? Right. Thank you. Sorry for the little interruptions. We're trying to clear one or two things we have appearing on the monitor. Right. So components of AGSMEIS. What are the components of AGSMEIS? We had earlier defined AGSMEIS as comprising agribusiness, and then small and medium enterprises as a vehicle for economic development and employment. So let's break down the components of AGSMEIS and then see why the government came up with this whole idea of AGSMEIS, and then see how they can be the main components for the diversification of the Nigerian economy. So let's start by looking at the AGSMEIS component, the agribusiness component of AGSMEIS. First, in 2019, agriculture contributed around 21.91% to Nigeria's GDP, surpassed only by industry at 7.38% and services sector at 49.73%. Okay, although Nigeria depends heavily on the oil sector for its budgetary revenue, Nigeria is predominantly an agricultural society, where approximately 70% of the population engage in agricultural production at subsistence level. I did mention that earlier. Okay, the bulk of Nigerians' agricultural economy before now was at subsistence level, and before the discovery of oil in Nigeria, Nigeria's economy, the mainstay of Nigeria's economy was agriculture. Okay, and to this date, agriculture still provides more in terms of GDP contributions than the oil sector. Much as Nigeria depends heavily on the oil sector for its budgetary revenue, Nigeria derives about 95% of its export earnings from the oil sector, and about 70% of government revenue comes from the oil sector. But when you look at it in terms of the GDP contribution, Nigeria's the oil sector's contribution to Nigeria's GDP is less than 10%. Okay, in 2015 it was 9%. In 2016 it dropped down to about 8%. In fact, the last releases by the NBS, National Bureau of Statistics, the oil sector contributed just about 8.35% of thereabout to the GDP. When compared to agricultural sector, the agriculture contributes 21.91%. You can see that the contribution of agriculture to Nigeria's economy in terms of GDP is double that of the oil sector. Okay, so it is quite massive, and of course, when you have that kind of strength, then of course it becomes an area that you need to really look at. Okay, because what is important in terms of assessment of any national development in terms of GDP, which is a GDP assessment, it's what that sector contributes, and in terms of the contribution to GDP, agri definitely surpasses that of oil. It is this trend, that is the trend of the contribution of agriculture to national economy, to national GDP, the government wants to leverage on with its renewed interest on the agricultural sector in an attempt to diversify the economy. This is also what informed the current government effort and devoted energy to initiatives like the Anchor Borrowers Program and now the AGSMEIS Loan Scheme. What we're saying here basically is that because of the trend which the government has seen, that is in terms of the GDP contribution of agri to the GDP, government wants to explore that area further, okay, by concentrating on agricultural sector, by seeing how they can build and they expand that sector, exploring its potential and expanding on its potential. And that is why government has come up with so many programs and initiatives in seeing how agricultural sector can be improved, can grow the agricultural sector. And one of those initiatives is the Anchor Borrowers Program. I'm sure you are all aware of the Anchor Borrowers Program. Okay? The Anchor Borrowers Program is another initiative of the CBN, but this one is targeted at rice production and then the rice value chain. Okay? And of course, we see what's happening in states like Kebbi, in states like Lagos, Ogun State, Anambra, Ebonyi, Benue, and a host of other states. Okay, there are massive agricultural rice farms all over the country today. We all know that Nigeria used to depend heavily on the importation of rice, but this current government decided that, look, we've had enough of those kind of importation. Most of our revenue, external results is going in the importation of food items, especially rice. And what that means is that while we are depleting our own revenue, foreign reserves, we are promoting the business of other countries. We are boosting the economies of countries like Thailand, like Bangladesh, Myanmar, Pakistan, and a host of other Far East countries, and India. Okay, so we are growing their own economy while killing our own economy. So the government took the right decision that no, it has to ban the importation of rice so that we can also grow our own rice and eat it. Okay, and then of course the policy drive became eat what you grow. Okay. Today, what that has done with the massive support of CBN in the Anko program, today Nigeria is the 8th largest producer of rice in the world, and then the largest producer of rice in Africa, okay, which is something that had just happened within the span of about 2-3 years. Okay, so we have made some inroads. The country has made some inroads, and it is in this direction that the government wants to push the Nigerian economy, so that if we are able to focus on that, provide all the necessary funding in the agricultural value chain, then of course we'll be able to change the story of this country, okay, in terms of dependence on oil. Because oil, as we all know, is a depleting resource. Okay, and then there are so many things that are coming down the line. We'll be looking at that subsequently. That says that, look, we need to diversify our economy, because sooner than later, oil will be all over the place and nobody will be needing it, nobody will be buying it, because the world's economy and those industries that use oil will move away from oil, so that there will be a whole lot of growth in the oil market. And then of course the revenue coming from oil will be depleted more than expected. So the earlier we diversify, the better. You can take the example of what people in the UAE have done. Dubai, for example. Dubai also started like Nigeria, an oil exporting country, but today oil is the least contributor to Dubai's UAE's economy. They have moved into other areas. They have moved into tourism more than anything else. Everybody wants to go to Dubai today. Nigerians just flock Dubai up and down, just for weddings, for all ceremonies. Okay, why? Because they saw the direction they needed to go. And that is what we should have done a long time ago. Okay, so we are just coming to this late realization that, look, it's time for us to diversify, move away from the air sector. And one of the areas that has been identified is the agricultural sector. And that is why, apart from the Uncle Boras program, the AGSMEIS loan scheme also is the other program which the federal government is championing with the support of the Committee of Bankers and then the CBN today. Okay, all right. Then the second component, let's look at the second component of AGSMEIS. The second component is the SME, that's the small and medium enterprises. The SME sector is the backbone of major developed economies, as well as an important contributor to employment, economic, and export growth. Mark the word here, major developed economies, not developing economies. SME sector is the backbone of major developed economies, not major developing economies, which means that most of the developed economies as we know them today, that is the world, the first world economies, the economies of the US, EU, and then China, and a host of all these countries, the SME sector is their backbone. Okay? Most of the major corporations that we know today started as SME. I always like to give the example of Apple. Okay, the Apple computer, the Apple Corporation. It started as Apple Computer, it moved to Apple Corporation. Today it's Apple. Okay, the Apple Computer started as an SME in the garage of the families of Steve Jobs and his friend Steve Wozniak. They started the Apple Computer as students. Okay, venturing into entrepreneurship. Today, the Apple Computer has moved from Apple Computer to Apple Corporation, now to Apple, as its identification. Apple, Apple will always a fruit, but when you mention Apple today, nobody is asking about the fruit. Nobody is talking about Apple as the fruit. Everybody is talking as Apple, as the appliance, as the device, as the computer. Okay, Apple today started with that small beginning. Today is a $2 trillion revenue earner. Okay, compared to Nigeria as a whole country that earns its total revenue earning is about $448 billion. Apple as a company, as a corporation, earns about $2 trillion revenue in per annum. So you can see what the SME sector can do. Okay, the same with Microsoft. Microsoft started also in the garage of Bill Gates' father. Today, Microsoft is all over the world. There is no computer that you buy today that you do not have some Microsoft element in it. Okay, and it all started as the handwork of a young entrepreneur who had the vision that he wanted a computer placed on every table in the world and in every home. And he has achieved that purpose today. Barely 16 years ago, we saw what Mark Zuckerberg started as a Facebook. He also started as an SME in the dormitory of in Harvard University dormitory. But today, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, about $6 billion on an annual basis. Okay, so that is what the SME sector is all about, even for the major developed economies. So if we can do the same for our country, for Nigeria, we will know where we are headed to. Okay, so according to the Nigerian SME survey by PwC, that's PricewaterhouseCoopers, that's a top accounting firm, 2019, in Nigeria, SMEs contribute 48% of national GDP and account for 96% of businesses and 48% of employment. So we can see the SME sector also doubles what agriculture contributes to the GDP. When agriculture is 21.91%, the SME sector contributes 48% of national GDP. When you compare that also to the LS sector, which is just about less than 10%, we see how massive, quadruple, the contribution of SMEs is to national GDP. And it also accounts for 96% of businesses. So all of the businesses, 96% of the businesses that we have in the country are SMEs, which means only 4% are actually major manufacturing hubs. Okay, we're all aware that most of our Nigeria's manufacturing companies have shut down or have moved to some other countries. If you go to Kaduna today, you drive into Kaduna through Kakuri today, almost the entire chain of major textile companies that we used to know them in the 60s and early 70s are all gone. If you go to Kano, Shereda Industrial Estate, I mean, it's a carcass of its own set. Those are areas where the major manufacturing hubs are. If you go to Lagos, Ikeja, where most of the manufacturing hubs was, is today taken over by churches. Okay, so you see what has happened to. So most of the businesses that we have are small and medium enterprises, not major manufacturing companies as we used to know. So less than 4% of that of our manufacturing is major manufacturing hubs today, and then the SME sector has taken over, and that is the direction to go. So that is what the government has said. Okay, so the SMEs in Nigeria constitute a total of about 17.4 million enterprises. They account for about 50% of industrial jobs and nearly 90% of the manufacturing sector in terms of enterprises. So you can see how massive the SME sector is in Nigeria. About 17.64 million enterprises. Okay, 50% of industrial jobs. Most of the industrial jobs that we have in the country, 50% of that are SMEs. And then, of course, 90% of the manufacturing sector, which is what I just talked about. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, in collaboration with the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDEN, the SME sector in Nigeria is strategically positioned to absorb up to 80% of jobs, improve per capita income, increase value addition to raw material supply, improve import earnings, enhance capacity utilization in key industry, and unlock economic expansion and growth. So that is the summation of the MBS and then SMEDEN. Okay, that is about the potential of the SME sector. Okay, if fully developed, it can absorb up to 80% of the jobs that we have in the country. We say we have an unemployment problem in Nigeria, but if we are able to develop the SME sector to the position where it needs to go, it has the capacity of absorbing, of taking in about 80% of those jobs, which is massive. If we're able to have any sector that can engage about 80% of our unemployed people, then of course that is a major achievement in that area, apart from what in terms of per capita income growth. Okay? Now, of course, we all know that per capita income is about the income of people across a geographical area. You compute it by dividing the nation's income by the total population of the country. Today, Nigeria's per capita income is pretty low. Okay, increased value addition in terms of raw materials. I did talk about how we previously export our raw materials. Okay, but today with the SME sector, we'll be with value addition to our agricultural produce production, and then the SME sector, which is basically provided by the SME sector, our raw material supply will have some more value addition, and that will be able to increase our import earnings, as it were, in the country today. Okay, so that's the potential, as it were, of the SME sector. So it is this potential which the government wants to explore and expand, but you realize that there exists a missing middle, which is the SME, which is that SMEs still find it hard to access funds. What we're saying basically is that the government has realized the potential of the agribusinesses and then the SMEs. But you realize that there is a challenge, there is a problem. There is what you call the missing middle. And what is this missing middle? Access to funds. You realize that for these two areas, agribusiness and SME, to expand to be the major backbone of the nation's economy, it needs funding, it needs additional funding. That is what it identified as a missing middle. Okay, so the AGSMEIS loan scheme is therefore government's response and solution to the missing middle, providing affordable and easily accessible funds to this vibrant and explosive sector with a high potential to be a major backbone of Nigeria's economic development and growth. So the AGSMEIS loan scheme is government's own solution, its own response to the problem of access to funds. Okay, that is the one way that it can provide easily accessible funds. Okay, easily accessible and easily affordable, collateral free, low interest rate, so that these two sectors, the agricultural sector and the SME sector, will have the resources to grow and blossom and then become what it has been for other countries of the world, the major backbone for Nigeria's economic development and growth. So that is the essence of the AGSMEIS loan scheme. Okay. All right, so we have finished with the introductory part of this paper. That's looking at the AGSMEIS loan scheme, defining what AGSMEIS is all about, its objective, its components. I've broken it all down. We're not going to move to the next section, which is entrepreneurship. But before we do, I'd like to open the class so that I'll be able to take questions. In case you have any questions you want to ask, please feel free. We'll unmute your mic now. So that you'll be able to ask your questions. Okay, all right. So let's can open up, unmute your mic, and then you can ask your question. If you have any question to ask, please welcome any questions now. I can see blank faces all over. If you want, you can also move your video so that I can see your faces, so that we can engage and discuss. Infinix Hot 9 Play. Can you give us your name? Looks like you have a question. Infinix Hot 9 Play. You have a question? You can also undo your video so that we can see your face. Let it be interactive as possible. There is a TV at the background somewhere that's interrupting the training. Infinix Hot 9 Play. Please, let's have your name, undo your video, let's see your face so that we can interact. Faith Quiet, you have a question? Please reduce the volume of the TVs in your place so that we can be able to hear ourselves, please. All right, yeah, Enas Chinwe. Good morning. You have a question, madam?
Good morning, sir. Not yet.
All right, good. Good to see you. All right, Kuwait, Infinix Hot 9 Play, yeah. What's your name, please? Can you tell us your name so that we can identify you by name? Unmute your mic. Infinix Hot 9 Play. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Can you identify yourself and ask your question?
Okay, good morning.
Morning.
My name is Chukwumeri Rose. No, I don't have a question yet.
Oh, okay, Chukwumeri Rose, thanks. All right, it's a pleasure. Bako S. Garba, You have a question? Undo your video. Let's see your face. You ask a question. Bako, you have a question? Zugwe Gaya, I engaged with you a lot in the past few days. Can you have a question? Undo your video. Let's see you. See the lady with a good African name there. Yeah, Bako, you have a question? Yeah, Bako, go ahead. Bako, you have a question? It's not connected? All right, Zugwe, can see you now. You have a question? All right. Yeah, Faith, Quiet, you have a question? Faith, Quiet. Faith, Quiet, you have a question? No? All right, Simi Ibrahim, good morning. You have a question? Yeah, Simi, you have a question? Bako, you have a question? All right, looks like we don't have questions, right? Vivo 1906. Vivo 1906. Unmute your mic if you have a question. Vivo, identify yourself if you have a question. Reduce the volume of the TVs in your house so that we hear ourselves. All right, Vivo 1906, you have a question? All right, if there are no questions, we'll go back to our lecture. It's not a marketplace. You should talk to them. All right, so we'll go back to our class. If you don't have any questions. All right, so we'll go back to our class. Let's start sharing. Components. All right. All right, so we're back in our class. Since there are no questions, so we'll continue from there. We'll stop. So we'll now start with the second segment of this lecture. What is entrepreneurship? So let me ask you the question. I want to believe we are all entrepreneurs as you are. So what is entrepreneurship? We have a chat. We have a chat room. I'll invite you to go to the chat room and then help me answer the question. What is entrepreneurship? Okay. Can somebody quickly go to our chat room and answer the question? What is entrepreneurship? You're all entrepreneurs. You all want to go into one entrepreneurial activity or the other. What is entrepreneurship? What is entrepreneurship? Am I getting any response? Somebody writing something? You can see my chat room is still empty. What is entrepreneurship? Right, I'm still waiting. All right. Can't see anything in my chat room. Chat box is here empty. All right, since nobody wants to, yeah, okay, there's something now. Yeah, there's chat, the way, yeah, it is the concept of developing and managing a business. Beautiful. Thanks, Zigwe. So Zigwe has challenged you guys. Can somebody else add to what Zigwe has said? The concept of developing and managing a business. To everyone. Any other addition to that? What's entrepreneurship? All right. Okay. Well, at least Zigwe has come to the aid of this class by responding on behalf of everyone, telling us what entrepreneurship is all about. Okay, there's a second one. There's a second one. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Simi Ibrahim. I'm also not hearing anything at all. Is that right? Then you have to do something about your mic. Kindly enable your mic from your end. That's our response. Enable your mic. You'll see where you should be enabling your mic. Okay. Can you do that, Simi? Enable your mic. All right. If you have any problem, any challenges that you cannot hear us, please try and raise the issue with us, and then we'll take care of it. Okay. We'll send you some steps on how to access your mic on the platform. Enas Chinwe, to everyone, the process of developing, funding, managing a business. Good. Process of developing, funding, and managing a business. That's Enas Chinwe's contribution. That's a good one also. Right. So let's continue. At least we've gotten some responses. Concept of developing and managing a business, and then the process of developing, funding, and managing a business, basically all saying the same thing. Right. So what is entrepreneurship? Okay. Entrepreneurship, here we have some definitions here. Entrepreneurship is a process of starting and running a business enterprise, which is basically what Zigwe and Chinwe have said. Okay. It is a process of starting and running a business. It involves investing capital in resources like people, in development of products and services to create viable commercial enterprises. It is the capacity and willingness to develop, to organize, and manage a business venture along with any of its risks in order to make a profit. Right. So this is the basic definitions that we have here. And it's basically saying the same thing with what Zigwe and Chinwe have said. Okay. Anytime you start a business, you start and you are running a business, you are involved in entrepreneurship venture. Each time you invest your capital, capital is money, funds, in resources like people. You know our definition of labor. Okay. People are part of labor. Okay. Capital and people, that's what constitute labor. So anytime you invest capital, your money, in resources like people are resources to develop products and services to create viable commercial enterprise, you are involved in entrepreneurship. And then more profound one here is the profit element, and then the risks that come with it. Okay, it is the capacity and willingness to develop, organize, and manage a business venture along with any of its risks in order to make a profit. So each time you start a business with the purpose of making a profit, and you are ready to take the risks that come with it, okay, to be able to make that profit, you are involved in an entrepreneurship venture. Okay, so entrepreneurship, anytime you start a business, there's always a motive behind it, and that motive most times is the profit motive. You want to make money. You want to make money. You want to be able to accomplish some goal of achieving money when you start that business. Okay, that is the profit motive. But to make that profit, there are risks that come with it. There are challenges that come with it. You could lose your money. You could lose your entire investment. You could lose your entire money in the process. Okay, so the fact that you are ready to take that risk because you want to make this profit, shows that yes, you are ready, you are involved in an entrepreneurship activity that involves money and and then of course the risk factor that come with it. Okay, so the most obvious example of entrepreneurship is starting of new business. And then what is the entrepreneurial spirit? It is characterized by innovation and risk taking. Mark the word again, risk taking, innovation and risk taking. And it is an essential part of a nation's ability to succeed in an ever-changing and increasingly competitive global marketplace. All right, so the world as we know it is a global marketplace, and countries are competing among themselves for a slice, for a pie of that marketplace. So the competition that we see today going on between the US and China is all part of this competition to have a chunk of the global market space. The competition between Apple iPhones and Samsung Android is all a competition to earn a part of a slice of that global market for smartphones. Okay, so anytime you find that the competition, therefore, is represented by people, but the people represent their various nations. So the competition between iPhone and Samsung represent the competition between America and South America to take control of the smartphone industry in the world. The competition between China and the US also is a function of the attempts by both countries to continue to exert its influence across the world. China, for example, notice that most of the Western world, the US and most of the Western world, have moved out of Africa in terms of providing support, in terms of infrastructural development, in terms of providing finances. And what did China do? It came into Africa and started filling the infrastructural gaps that we have. Okay, with all manners of innovative activities, building their railway lines for them, building their airports for them. Okay, so these are areas. These are areas that the nations compete. Nations compete for a pie of the global market. And it's not just the Western world. If you come to Africa also, the same thing. We have Nigerian businesses that are also competing across Africa, trying to grab a share of the African global market. Okay, so we have companies like Dangote who have cement companies in over 11 countries in Africa. We have Glo, for example, that has competing with MTN in most African countries to make inroads for its telecom business. So that is basically what it is. Entrepreneurship spirit, therefore, is the innovation. People are innovating, they are creating, they are ready to take risk. Okay, take the risk to be able to find a part of the very large global market. Okay, and the market is vast, and then everybody is competing within national context to be able to have a share of that global market. So you have businessmen from all over the world who are innovating, who are creating, okay, to be able to have a share of this global industry. Okay, so you have Alibaba, for example, and Amazon competing among themselves to take charge of to have substantial share in the IT-driven world of marketing. Okay, so that's what the entrepreneurship spirit is all about. It's characterized by innovation. It's characterized by risk taking. Okay, which is essential for global competitiveness. Right. So, who is an entrepreneur? We have looked at entrepreneurship. Now we define what entrepreneurship is. Now, who is an entrepreneur? Sorry. An entrepreneur is a person who takes the risk of investing his money, his time, passion in development of a business or several business enterprises. This is a very pungent definition. A person who takes the risk. Remember, we talked about risk and then the profit motive. He takes the risk of investing his money, his capital, his time. Remember, time is precious. And then passion. Passion is what drives people most times in doing what they do. Okay? So anybody who is ready to take the risk of investing his money, his time, passion in development of a business or several business enterprises is an entrepreneur. Okay? He's giving of his time He's giving up his resources. He's giving up his passion to develop a business. That is entrepreneurship. That is an entrepreneur. The one definition that resonates so much with me is also by Reid Hoffman. Reid Hoffman defines an entrepreneur as someone who jumps off a cliff and builds a plane on the way down. Literally, jumping off a plane. Okay, so jumping off a plane does not literally mean you jump off a cliff physically and then build a plane on the way. No, but you are ready to take the risk. Okay, risk of the unknown, going to the unknown, trying your hands at the unknown. And in the course of doing that, you are focused, you are driven by your passion, and you take that limb of faith and belief and faith and vision, and then you end up at the bottom of the cliff. You have built a plane on the way down. It's to say that any business that you want to go into involves risk taking. That is a cliff, jumping off the cliff. And we know what the cliff is like. A sharp, a high hill with a river, and then the river may be flowing under in the river, under the valley. Okay, anybody that takes that kind of leap, of course, we know if it hits the floor, it's likely to be shattered. So that is the risk. That is the potential, the likelihood of failure if you don't succeed. Okay, so when you take that risk, okay, to achieve a purpose, that's building a plane. As you get down, you accomplish the goal that you have set out to be. So all of you have your goal which you are pursuing, your plane which you want to build. But to be able to do that, you have to jump off a cliff. Okay, so that is Reid Hoffman's definition of an entrepreneur. Okay, right. The Wright brothers and their plane. The Wright brothers, for me, typifies a typical example of the entrepreneur. Okay, the Wright brothers built the first aeroplane in the world. Okay, when they started, everybody laughed at them and said there was no way you could construct a massive equipment, okay, with a heavy metallic object that will fly in the air, in the sky. But the Wright brothers proved everybody wrong. You can see the kind of plane, their first kind of the plane they built. Everybody laughed at them. They crashed severally, but they were undeterred. They believed that a plane could fly, carrying people from one point to the other and crossing the ocean. And what happened? They succeeded in building their plane. And today, what we have is jumbo jets flying all over the world today, okay, massive planes that can carry over 500 people, carrying massive machineries from one end of the continent to the other, crisscrossing the world and crossing thousands of miles within hours. We had supersonic jets that are able to cross across Europe to Americas within the space of about 3 hours or thereabout. So that is all the innovation, the vision of the Wright brothers. So that typify for me Reid Hoffman's definition. Reid Hoffman's definition of an entrepreneur. Please mute this guy in Port Infinix. All right. Then, of course, on our screen, we have, for me, our modern Wright brothers. I don't know how many of you know the person who is on this picture, or is Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a South African American today. He typifies today Wright brothers. Elon Musk is the founder and then the chief executive officer of SpaceX. SpaceX is an aeronautic, an airspace building company. They build rockets, build aviation rocket engines that take people to the International Space Center. Only last week, it succeeded in taking about 4 people, including the first black astronaut, the first black astronaut to the International Space Center in the orbit. All right. So, yeah, I was talking of Elon Musk. Okay, he, I said, represent for me the typical modern day Wright brothers. Okay, he's the chief executive officer and founder of SpaceX. SpaceX is an aeronautic engineering company that specializes in building of aviation engines with the aspiration of taking people to orbit. Today, we know that the international space, the travels to international to orbit is dominated by countries, the US, China, India, and the rest of those countries. But today, as an individual, a private individual, Elon Musk has succeeded in taking people to the International Space Center in the orbit. About 6 months ago, he succeeded in doing one, and then recently, he also succeeded in taking. Right, so you stop my video. So co-host, stop your video. Right. So that is Elon Musk for you. Okay. Elon Musk is not only involved in the International Space Center, he's also the founder and owner of Tesla. Tesla is an electric car company. Okay, they build electric cars, and the whole aspiration is that they want to build cars because of the issues of climate change, carbon pollution, carbon monoxide in space, the carbon depletion of the ozone layer because of carbon emissions and all of that. They are building electric cars to be able to solve those problems. Before the advent of COVID-19, if you go to places like China and India, you find people wearing masks. Just about 2 weeks ago, the whole of Delhi, New Delhi, the Indian capital, people had to start wearing masks. In the midday, cars were using their headlights because of carbon emission, because of smoke from their industrial base. The same also with China. Okay, so one of the ways to go to overcome this is the issue of electric cars because of the carbon emission by petroleum-based engines. Okay, and that's why when I was talking about the oil industry, I did say that in no distant future, countries that depend on oil will run into trouble. Because most of the oil that we export today will become worthless. Because by 2050, the projection is that by 2050, most of the cars in the world will be driven by electric batteries, electric cars, and then water, hydrogen. Okay? So if that happens, then of course our oil becomes as useless as it is. And that is one of the main reasons why the call for diversification is even more pungent and more important and very, very necessary that it is pursued. So that is Elon Musk for you and his innovation. And one of his major vision is to be able to take people to Mars, to colonize Mars and settle in Mars. That is a long haul, but that is his dream and that is his aspiration. And of course, we know the Western world, the moment they've made a commitment to a subject, they pursue it to the very end of it until they accomplish that goal. When in 1963 or thereabout, J.F. Kennedy said the aspiration of his government is that America wants to take man to the moon. Okay, and they succeeded in doing that. Even when he had left the scene, he had been killed and left the scene, assassinated and left the scene. But that became the goal of subsequent American president, and until they achieved that goal in 1967 or thereabout. So that is the aspiration of Elon Musk, to be able to take, first of all, for now, to take people on vacation to space, to orbit, and then subsequently, how they'll be able to take people to colonize and settle in Mars. Okay, so final definition of who is an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur is any individual who starts a new business, venture or a company, he arranges the business deals and takes the risk in order to make profit or create social change. So we've looked at the profit component of it, but what about the social change component? Entrepreneurs, not all entrepreneurs are driven by the profit motive. Some of them are driven by the need, by the desire to make social change. And that is exactly what people like like Mark Zuckerberg are doing with their Facebook venture. Okay, Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook has brought a lot of social change in the world. He has brought people closer together through the interaction of the social networking app, which he developed in the form of Facebook. The last NSAS protest that we had in the country was driven and mobilized more than anything else through the Facebook interactive process, the Instagram and all of those social media outlets. That is creating social change. So an entrepreneur is somebody who starts a new business, then arrange the deals, then takes the risk in order not just to make the profit, but also to make social change. What does an entrepreneur do? What does an entrepreneur do? We defined entrepreneurship, we define who is an entrepreneur. Now let's look at what an entrepreneur does. As entrepreneurs on this program, what is it that you do? What is it that drives you? What is it that you want to achieve? Okay? An entrepreneur identifies a need that no existing businesses addresses and determines a solution for that need. He identifies a need. No business has identified that need so far, and then determines the solution for that need. Entrepreneurial activities include developing and launching new businesses and marketing them, often with the end goal of selling the business to turn a profit. So let's give a typical example. As an entrepreneur, you come into a location and you find the people within that environment, that community, drinking water from a stream. That's where they drink, they get the water they drink. That's where they get the water to bath, to wash, and all of those things. Okay? And then you wonder, the likelihood of disease prevalence, the likelihood of illness, all manners of illnesses within that community because of the nature of their source of drinking water. A point of drinking water streams where you're likely to find cows also drinking and messing up. Okay? And that is the source where the community drinks its water. And then he identifies that, look, there is a challenge here, there is a problem here, but we can't find a solution. And he decides to dig a borehole. He digs a borehole so as to be able to get water for the community, for either production of sachet water or drawing up a bank of taps where people can come and fetch their water, or developing a bottled water company. He has identified a problem and has provided a solution. That is what he has done. That is what an entrepreneur does. Identifies a problem and provides a solution. So this entrepreneur has identified the problem that this community has water problem, potable drinking water problem, and he has provided that solution. That is what an entrepreneur does. So what kind of thing are you trying to provide? What kind of services are you trying to provide in your own case? Okay? Because any kind of business solution you are trying to provide for a problem you have noticed within a community is, as it were, an entrepreneurial activity. That's what an entrepreneur does. Okay? An entrepreneur who regularly launches new businesses and sells them and then starts new businesses is a serial entrepreneur. Additionally, although the term entrepreneur is often associated with startups and small businesses, any founder of a successful household name and then business began as an entrepreneur. So that is what an entrepreneur does. Okay, right. So let's give some examples of successful entrepreneurs. We have here Steve Jobs as a late tech leader who started Apple Computer in a garage with his friend. I've talked about them. And then grew it to be the dominant tablet, smartphone, and computer company that it is today. Okay, I told you that Steve Jobs and his friend Steve Wozniak started the Apple Computer. Okay, he moved from Apple Computer to Apple Corporation. Today, it is simply Apple. Okay, and their products are multiple and one of the best set of products you can think about in the electronic world, in the smartphone business, and then in the computer business. Okay, they come in the form of tablets, like iPads, they come in iPhones, iPods, in computers, laptop computers, and all of that. That is what they are into. The successful Steve Jobs, is late now. Then we have Bill Gates. Bill Gates is the creator and founder of Microsoft. Okay, today he's listed as one of the wealthiest people, and then today also a leader, a global leader on pandemics and how to handle it. See, Bill Gates started with a vision. Okay, he started his own smartphone company also in the garage of his parents' home. Okay, and of course, when he was starting, he had this vision that within a decade, he wants to place a microcomputer on the desks of every office in America, in the world, and then in every home in America. Okay, he approached IBM computers. IBM computers then specialized in the mainframe computers. Mainframe computers are massive computers, computing machines that could take a whole floor, and told them, look, this is his vision and it is doable. IBM company laughed at him and said it was impossible. Till today, that is one of the major regrets of IBM company, because Bill Gates left them and went ahead, despite the rejection, to be what it is today. And his dreams and aspirations, as it were, have been achieved. Okay, Elon Musk, I've talked a lot about Elon Musk already. I say he's the founder of SpaceX, an aerospace and rocket manufacturing company. Okay, and then of course, Tesla, I'm sure you're familiar with Tesla, the electric car and solar products company. They are the ones who are aspiring to build cars driven on electric. And then, of course, in the next 30 years, most cars in the world, as it were, will be driven more by electric cars than by petroleum engine. Okay, so that's Steve Jobs, pictures of some of those people. Steve Jobs here, he passed on in 2011. Then, of course, Bill Gates, who is still with us today. Bill Gates, you're all aware, has moved on from his Microsoft company. He's more into medicine now, joining in the production of vaccines. Nigeria recently exited from the group of countries that had polio afflictions. These are all part of the handwork of Bill Gates and his foundation. And of course, he is also involved today with the production of the coronavirus vaccine. That is what Bill Gates is doing today. Okay. Right. Then, of course, I talked about Mark Zuckerberg, the young man who's just barely about 33 or thereabout. He's the co-founder and owner of Facebook. Okay, he saw the need for interpersonal communication among people, and then developed the social networking service for his Harvard University dormitory in 2004. That's barely 16 years today. 5 years down the line, he had over 500 million users, and today over 2 billion users, and a revenue base of about 6 billion annually. That is massive. That is just one company that started as an SME, but today a major corporation with 2 billion users. Okay, what kind of an enterprise are you likely to build? Are you likely to have that kind of resource use and then patronage? Okay, that is the kind of aspiration, that is the kind of projection we hope that you'll be able to make, and then you'll be able to also accomplish as you move down the line with your own enterprises. All right, so let's look also at some examples of successful Nigerian entrepreneurs. We have Tony Elumelu, Adenuga, Dangote, Tedola, Awoshika. They are all our examples of Nigerian successful entrepreneurs. Tony Elumelu made a fortune from the banks, Adenuga from telecom industry, Dangote, of course, we are all familiar with. We all had the stories of how he used his pocket money to buy sweet and sell when he was primary school. And then later, he took a loan of about 500,000 from his uncle to finance his business. Today, he's Africa's richest man with vast interest in cement, in sugar, in oil and gas, and a host of other businesses. Tony Elumelu, as I said, made his fortune in banking, and today he's empowering new entrepreneurs across Africa. Okay, you see pictures like that. These are the kind of people that Tony Elumelu is working with. He has a foundation that has the aspiration of developing Africa's new entrepreneurs. On a year-to-year basis, he brings together over 2,000 young entrepreneurs from across Africa, gives them seed money ranging from about $5,000 to $20,000 for them to go and start their own entrepreneurial businesses and then build it from there. And the hope is that in the next 10, 20 years, from this crop of people that are beneficiaries of Tony Elumelu's patronage and of course goodwill, will also have the next crop of Africa's entrepreneurs driving the course of African entrepreneurship ventures. All right, then of course we have on the screen here another gentleman. I don't know how many of you know him. or have heard his name before. Okay, but I'm sure if I mention, you'll be able to identify him. He is Mr. Nnamdi Ezigbo. Okay, most of you on this platform, I saw some Techno and Infinix phone brands already are using his product. Mr. Nnamdi Ezigbo is the founder and chief executive officer of Slot Nigeria Limited and the co-founder of Techno and Infinix phone brands, one of the fastest selling mobile phones in Nigeria today. Okay, Mr. Ezigbo's story is typical of most young Nigerians who are leaving the tertiary institutions. Okay, after his NYSC in 1996, he went around looking for white-collar jobs. But when he couldn't find one, he ended up in a computer repair shop as an apprentice. And eventually, after completing his apprenticeship, he also settled down to set up his own shop and started repairing computers. But in the course of doing that, okay, I also started selling computers and cell phones. In the course of doing that, people who come to buy cell phones from his shop, he found that so many Nigerians were carrying 2-3 phones at a time, cell phones at a time. And he noticed that that was a typical Nigerian issue. And most of the people who are carrying these cell phones do that because of network issues. So he thought about it. Instead of people carrying these many phones around, why don't we create a phone that has 2 SIM cards? Okay, that was a fine idea for him. So he approached Nokia, the Nokia company, all the Nokia who make cell phones. And Nokia turned him down and said, no, we'll rather produce one single handset with a single SIM card because we want to sell as many as possible instead of producing one with dual SIM and then reducing our sales, of course, which makes sense. But Ezigbo was undaunted. He approached a young Chinese guy who just left his job with a cell phone company and then gave him his insight. And the guy bought into the idea. And as I say, all that is story today because they went together to now develop the Techno brand and subsequently the Infinix brand, producing phones with dual SIM. And today, this brand of phones are the largest selling, fastest selling phones in Nigeria today, providing access to phones for many young Nigerians and people of middle class level that are not able to afford the iPhones and the Samsungs, but are able to afford Infinix, which is providing the same services as the other smartphones. Right. So that is what that's Ezigbo's contribution, and that is what an entrepreneur does. He saw an opportunity and decided to take it. All right. So let's look at types of entrepreneurship. The first 4 types of entrepreneurship. First, the innovator. This starts a business because of his passion for innovation. Then the specialist. This one is an expert. He packages expertise into developing viable business ventures. Then the opportunist, this sees existing gap and provides a business to service that gap. And then the builder, this believes in building empire and then massive infrastructure. All right, so let's look at it in more detail. The types of entrepreneurs actually was derived from a book by Joe Abraham, which he called Entrepreneurial DNA. Joe Abraham identified that each entrepreneur is driven by a different DNA. DNA, we all know, is the genetic marker in all humans that differentiate one human being from the other. He found that also, like the human DNA, the entrepreneur also has his own DNA. Not all entrepreneurs are wired the same way. Okay, they differ, and he was able to identify 4 distinct types of entrepreneurs. The first he identified is the builder. He said this one believes in building empire and the infrastructure. They are driven by the need to build highly scalable businesses. They are not just satisfied with personal income, but are more driven to build big infrastructure. I always like to give the example of South Koreans. South Koreans, we all know, are one of the countries that are involved, their entrepreneurs are involved in some of the most massive buildings you can think about. Okay, the Samsung industry company that we know, it's not just about cell phone. It's a massive composite company that comprises electronics, home appliances, even shipbuilding, and all of those things. That is the kind of thing that drives them. The South Koreans are the largest, the builders of the largest ships you can think about, from ocean-going tankers to the cruise ships and all of that. That is their line of business. So they believe in building empires and massive infrastructure. The opportunists, this sees an existing gap and provides the business to service that gap. Just typically, the example we gave of the individual who came into a community and saw the need for potable drinking water. That's their typical opportunist for you. Richard Bryson falls into that kind of category. I would like to give, always like to give the example of Richard Bryson, who is the owner of Virgin Atlantic Airline, Virgin Rail Line, remember also Virgin Nigeria, came into Nigeria and decided to partner with Nigeria to set up the airline, Nigerian airline, where he noticed the number of people traveling out of Nigeria every day, most of them using DA, Lufthansa, Emirates, and the host of them. He thought he could come into Nigeria, partner with the Nigerian government, so that you'll be able to provide that airline for Nigeria to be able to use. But of course, after a couple of years, he had to pull out of the business because of Nigeria's typical way of doing its own business. Okay. Then the specialist, this packages skill and expertise into viable businesses. The specialist is very analytical. He's an expert. Okay. He is willing at all given point in time to go into all manners of expert business activities. Yeah. So somebody like Bill Gates fits into the mold of your specialist. Like I said, today Bill Gates has moved away from the IT industry with his Microsoft and moved into medicine. Today, Bill Gates sits and discusses vaccines today, and you think he's a medical doctor. But that is what an expert is all about. That's what a specialist is all about. The innovator, this starts a business because of his passion for innovation. Innovators do something they love, and when the opportunity comes along the way, they take it. Okay, typically it's people like Mark Zuckerberg. They'll tell you they are not in need for the money; they are in need because of the service it provides to mankind. Okay, so they'll tell you I'll do it for free for the rest of my life if I could. Okay, that's typical the kind of person that Mark Zuckerberg is. We've seen him severally. We know the kind of how he dresses, always down to earth with his jeans, pants, and t-shirt. That is what the innovator is all about. He's driven, his passion is just to create, to innovate new things, right? So, but why are we highlighting this issue here? We're highlighting this because we want to ask you the question, have you identified your own DNA? What kind of entrepreneur are you? Are you an innovator? Are you a builder? Are you a specialist or an opportunist? It's important, why we highlight this is because it's important that you identify what drives you. Identify what kind of DNA drives you, okay? It's on understanding yourself and what drives you, the DNA that drives you, that you'll be able to also surround yourself, okay, with, be able to select the kind of business that you want to go into, okay, the strategy you want to adopt, and then the kind of team that you surround yourself with, okay, to help you in that line of business. So what kind of entrepreneur are you? Are you a specialist? Are you an opportunist? Are you a builder or an innovator? Okay, all right. So before we go into the next listen again, let's take a look again. Let's open the class in case you have any other question. We're finished the component on entrepreneurship. Let's look in case you have any other question to ask. Let's open the class and then we'll take some questions. You have any question to ask with respect to the issues we discussed on entrepreneurship? You can open your mic and if you have any question, please ask.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Simi.
Yeah.
Yes, all right.
Sorry, I joined late, but then I understand the little that you said about types of entrepreneur. I think I'm an innovator because with this course, I think I've invited most people because I'm into business, yes, but then I'm not into profit business.
Okay.
Like I do it for the mankind and the happiness of people around me.
Okay.
So
That's
I
social
think
enterprise.
yes, social enterprise.
Great. Right. That's great.
Thank
That's
you.
beautiful. All right, thanks.
All right.
Anybody with any addition? Any contribution? Everybody has blinded their face. Any contribution, or do we go on? Simi has just told us her line of business. She's into social enterprise, not profit-driven, profit motive-driven. Like we said, people like that are into social change. They want to contribute to social change in our society, in our community. That's our own line of business. All right. What drives you? What kind of entrepreneur are you? Are you driven to build massive infrastructure and empire? Or what? No questions, no contribution. Everybody's muted. All right. So, okay, there's a chat. Vivo, I joined late. Sorry, you joined late. I can't hear what the resource person is saying. Bako, Bako, please, if you can hear me, can you post how to access voiceover? Bako, if you can't hear, we're going to post on the platform, on the training platform, how you'll be able to connect to hear the resource person. Okay. Faith, you have anything to say, ma'am? Faith, you can see you're unmuted. You have anything to add? All right, so we'll go back to our class. Let's go back to our class. All right, so continue now. Types of businesses for consideration. Like I said, most of you have made up your mind what you want to do, but I know in the previous classes that we've done, there are many who, after this lecture, have called to say, I think having seen the list of businesses that there are, I think I want to change up my mind and then go into another line of business. Can you advise me further on that? So let's see the type of businesses that you can consider and see if the one that you had thought about earlier is still the same one that you want to continue after today, okay? So that we'll see how we proceed from there. All right, so types of businesses for consideration. These are the various types of businesses for consideration. Fashion, we all know what the fashion industry is in Nigeria today, but for the COVID situation that has slowed down so many businesses, we know the fashion industry is so massive in Nigeria. On a week-to-week basis, we see the kind of fashion sense and fashion speak that we have all over Nigeria, the weddings, the chieftaincy ceremonies, and all of those things. Especially in December, there is this special fashion display coming from Ogun State, I think from the Oba Fijebu Day or so, where they have these massive fashion parades every year. Maybe they will still have it this year. I don't know whether COVID will allow them, or they will do it on a low scale today. Then small scale manufacturing. They will have catering, we'll have buying and selling, we'll have event management, we'll have animal husbandry, we'll have school business, daycare, nursery, we'll have hospitality, and eateries, restaurants, snack bars, as I said, with catering. All these are supported by the bank. Digital currency, not exactly, but it's an area that people can interested I want to go into all this have to do with crowdfunding today, photography, publishing, dry cleaning, cosmetic, beauty and makeup artistry, then health services. All these are the various type of businesses that are in existence today that people can try their hands on. Then vocational skills for consideration. Vocational skills include electronic, electricians, plumbing, carpentry, masonry. This area is important. I like to always emphasize on this area because ours is a country where, if you take a city like Abuja, FCT, for example, for the next 50 years, this is going to be a city that is under construction. Okay, but when you go to most of our construction sites, most of the skilled hands you find there, most of the vocational workers you find there, the support staff you find in the construction sites, most of them are not Nigerians. Most of them are from the West Coast countries of Benin, Togo, Ghana, and the rest of those places. So we need to. This is an area where trainees, if they are interested, could see the possibility of establishing a vocational skills institution where they can train so many Nigerians to be able to acquire the necessary skills in that. Today we find people all over Nigeria who are involved in menial jobs. You go to our markets, you see so many of these young men with wheelbarrows here and there, pushing wheelbarrows all over the place, and then maybe carrying scissors in their hand, doing pedicure, cobblers, shoe shine, and all of those things. These are people who could benefit from this kind of vocational skills and be able to find real good paying jobs for them to be able to get themselves involved. Okay, so it's an area that we can explore and that will make a world of a difference for all of us, really. Okay, so there's a great demand for vocational skills because there's a dearth of such available skills, and this is one area that participants may consider to acquire the requisite knowledge and build the vocational skills and market it as a viable business enterprise. Right. So having said that, let's look at the things you need to consider before going into a business. What are the things that you need to consider before going into a business? First and foremost, is there a demand for the business? Is there a demand for that business? Many businesses fail simply because the entrepreneur set up a business and sold products and services people don't need. Others set up a business that produce or sold products and services that people want or cannot afford. If we take the example of the person who comes to a community and then find that they drink water from the stream, okay? He decided to set up a portable a borehole, and then decides to sell the water from the borehole in sachets, okay, as sachet water, and then some as bottled water. So this is a business, it's a service that people want. The people need this one, but they found that they cannot afford it. Why? Because the cost of one sachet of water, which is 10 naira, was too much, or 100 naira for the bottled water was too much for people in that community. So maybe that is why nobody has set up that line of business. But if he had set up that borehole and then provided tap heads where people can come with a bucket and fetch that water for 10 naira, you will find that people will patronize that business, okay? Because 10 naira for a bucket of water compared to 10 naira for a sachet of water, there is a world of a difference. So people set up a business that produce or sell products and services that people want but cannot afford. So we need to know what people need and what they can afford. You will need to ask the question, are there other people doing similar business, or are you bringing something new to the table? Okay. If you are starting a business in an area where the market is already saturated, the business might fail, as you may find you are struggling to keep up with the competition. If you come to a community, for example, and you find that there is a bakery there already producing and selling bread, and you decide to set up another bakery within that community, of course, you know you are going to run into some challenge. Okay, unless that bakery that you have set up is such that will produce some other kind of loaf or some other kind of product that is different from what is already in existence, okay, which means you are bringing something entirely different. If not, you are going to struggle, okay? it is important that you do some research to find areas where the competition is not properly serving the customers and position your business to fill the gap. Okay? So as an entrepreneur, you have to work hard to differentiate your products and bring something different to the market that no one else has seen. That is your USP, your unique selling point or proposition. So what I'm saying basically here is that if you are coming into a market where already there are similar products, then make sure that whatever it is that you're bringing into the market will be different from what already exists. Okay? If not, you are going to run into trouble. Or is providing service that is different from, uniquely different from what is already being provided. I'd like to give the example of pig milk and Tree Crown. Okay, we all know pig milk. Pig milk was the most dominant milk brand in the country. It came in a can, in a tin can, and it evaporated, liquid form, okay? And it dominated the entire market. So suddenly from nowhere, Tree Crown milk appeared. And Tree Crown came into the market selling sachet milk, powdered sachet milk, okay? And 10 naira at 10 naira per sachet. And pig milk was 15 naira per sachet. People thought they were mental coming into that kind of market. But they did their survey, they did their research, and found that, look, a vast majority of Nigerians could not afford pig milk. So they had their tea without milk, okay? But by providing the sachet, powder sachet milk at the rate of 10 naira, they were filling the gap, which the majority of Nigerians could now afford. And the moment they did that, more Nigerians were able to take their tea with milk, because at 10 naira you could buy the sachet that could make tea with that for like 2-3 other cups. Okay, so that one met the requirements of the low-income people in the country. And before you knew what was happening, most companies also took a cue from what Tree Crown did and started making sachet, powder sachet milk. And today we have been seeing powdered tin milk of different sizes, including pig itself, that had dominated the market. But the coming of Tree Crown changed the whole scenario. So you have to make sure finding out something that makes your business stand up is critical for the survival of your enterprise. So whatever business you want to go into, please do your own market survey very well. Find out where the existing business are not satisfying people's need and not meeting as many people's requirements as possible, and then fill that gap. Okay, just like Tree Crown did in the area of pig milk, of milk. Okay, things to consider before going to meet. Determine what needs are out there. What are the things needed out there? What businesses exist to satisfy those needs? If there are no business currently satisfying those needs, it could mean that no one has thought about the business. Okay, that that there's not enough market to make setting up that business viable. But at the cost of carrying out the business in that environment could be expensive. We could use the example of this gentleman who came to environment and then decided to build dig a borehole. Okay, so in getting to that environment, he found that no business was satisfying those needs. But he needs to find out why. Okay, maybe that the business currently is not satisfying the needs, or it could mean that no one has thought about it. So it could mean that no one has thought about digging a borehole within that community, and that's why he now decided to do that. But then it could also mean that digging a borehole in that community and then selling the water at sachet and bottled water will of course not make the business viable, because the people in that community may not likely have that kind of money to buy sachet water for 10 naira when they can equally buy a bottle, a bucket of water for 10 naira. So there is not enough market to make setting up that business viable. And then the cost of doing the business might be expensive. Maybe in the course of digging the borehole, he ran into a layer of rocky stones after the surface soil. But he still insisted on digging the borehole. When he succeeded in doing that, of course, now to sell the water, to be able to break even, he had to sell at an expensive rate. And in doing that, of course, he will not be able to find the market to meet the profit motive. So that could be a challenge there for him, right? So next, How do we determine what needs are out there? How do you determine what needs are out there? Ask questions. You need to ask questions. Okay? You'll be surprised what you find out about people's needs when you ask questions. Okay? Without asking questions, you just take it for granted that people might need this, but you might be wrong. Okay? Administer simple questionnaire. Which people can respond to? Just develop some questions and pass around. You'll be surprised the kind of responses you get. Okay, people will tell you what specifically they think they need within that community. Okay, use the social media to get feedback from prospective customers. Social media is one of the easiest ways of communication today. It's very vast, very accessible to many people. Almost every other person is on social media today. Okay, read journals and online sites. Those ones give free information about market surveys and trends. Look around and observe things. You'll be surprised what you find, okay, when you observe things yourself, okay? Learn from Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. They looked around, they observed things within their environment to be able to go into the line of business that they did, okay? So it's important that we ask questions, that we administer questionnaires, social media, we look around and observe things. They help us a lot, okay? Right, so now barriers. When we started this, I talked about yeah, when we started this this lecture, I did mention that whatever it is that we do in life, we are most likely bound to run into some barriers, into some hurdles along the way, along the path. Okay? The same also if we want to start a business. We are most likely going to run into some major barriers along the way. Okay, what are these barriers? How do we overcome them? That's what we're trying to look at now. What are the major barriers, main barriers that you face as an entrepreneur? Okay, money. Money. This is the most vital resource an entrepreneur needs to start a business, and probably the most critical barrier to starting a small business. Exactly how much do you need to start, and where are you going to get the money from? Where are you going to get the money from? Of course, we are in this program today because you have identified that you want to go into entrepreneurship, but the money is a challenge. The missing middle, which we talked about earlier. Okay, so that is how important it is. It's one of the major barriers, main barriers for people who want to start their own business. Lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge. Here, many small businesses fail not for lack of capital, but because the entrepreneurs had little knowledge of the business. It's always a major challenge. Okay, you might want to go into a business, you see somebody succeeding in that line of business, and then you also want to go into it. And then you find that, look, you know very little about that. So you need to do some things about that. You need to read up a lot about that. You need to understand the others. You need some mentoring and the rest of those things. Lack of knowledge is a major problem. When are the peak and low seasons for the business? There are some businesses that have low and peak seasons. We have to know those low and peak seasons. If you are in tomato farming, you know there are peak seasons, you know there are low seasons. It's not an all year round kind of, unless you, of course, are involved in irrigation farming. But even then, there are periods when there's so much tomato in the market that there is a glut, and you find many of our tomatoes are getting rotten because of that kind of problem. Then, of course, what sudden change in the environment can affect the business? Government policy, taxes. These are things that we need to be very, very cautious about. Ours is a country where policy changes continue to happen on a day-to-day basis. Not too long ago, we had government banning the importation of maize. Okay, and then of course people took facilities to set up maize farms. And just before they could harvest their maize, government, because poultry farmers were crying that maize for feeds was becoming a challenge, government opened the market and then lifted the ban on maize. The people that had just collected money from banks to be able to farm had not harvested and put their markets, their products in the market, and then this thing was lifted. That becomes a challenge because those who took the facility will now have to battle, have to compete with those who are importing and bringing it at a much cheaper rate. So that is the challenge there. So it's important that we know what the government policy is at every given point in time, be able to anticipate it, and then know the kind of business we go to. Taxes. Not too long ago, government changed taxes, the VAT from 5 to 7.5%, for stamp duty from 5 to 6%, and all of that. These are things that keep changing. We've had stories of many entrepreneurs in FCT been complaining, grumbling about the multiple taxes from and other local government agents in the So these are all problems that our entrepreneurs continue to find as they go about trying to run their businesses. Multiple taxation, all manners of people on the road cutting tickets for you. These are challenges that we need to come to terms with, and then know, anticipate them, and then prepare for them. Will the business be able to generate cash immediately, or will you be selling on credit? Are the products perishable? How long does it take to produce your products, your goods, and will it affect the ability to meet your customers' needs? All of these are things you need to take into consideration. If you are going to run your business and sell on credit, then of course you know that you are going to run into problems, because most people in Nigeria who buy things on credit hardly pay. So you need to know that whatever line of business you go into, it should be such that you'll be able to generate cash immediately you are selling. Okay, products are they perishable? I get the examples of tomato just now. So you need to know the kind of products that you're producing. Okay, and then if they're seasonal, if they're perishable, and then of course you have to think about the kind of facilities you have for such perishable items, so that you don't lose everything. How long it takes to produce a product, and then the ability to meet your customers' needs. The time frame, the timeline for production is something that you have to be very, very sensitive about, because if you have off-takers, then of course you should meet them at the point of their needs at any given point in time. Okay, if not, you are bound to run into some problem. Another major main barrier is determination. Okay, you have to develop the courage of a bulldog and maintain the determination that will enable you to smash through the obstacles, as there will be many along the way. Okay, you need determination to keep you focused, pick up when you fail or face rejection, and to continue to look for new solutions and strategies to make the business a success. Yeah, what we're saying basically is that, you know, most people, the moment they face the first hurdle, the first challenge on their path of their business, they simply fold their arms and give up. Okay, they turn their backs on that business. They say, oh no, I can't be able to overcome this. The challenge is too much. But if that is what you want to do, if that line of business you want to do, then of course you need to keep your focus. Okay, when you fail, you need to pick up, develop new strategies. If you face rejection, take another direction, and then see how you are going to break out. Find new solutions, new strategies. That is the only way to go. You have to develop the courage and then the thick skin of a bulldog for you to be able to overcome these challenges. Because if you give up, then of course, you know that you're not going to go very far in that line of business. Fear, our greatest enemy. Fear is one of the greatest barriers to people starting a business. What if I fail? They ask. What if I make a fool of myself? What if I'm rejected? And people say no. So what? What if you fail? So you won't be the first. Okay, what if I make a fool of myself? Of course, you're making a fool of yourself. That's you. So what does it matter if you make a fool of yourself? You're not making a fool of anybody. Okay, but you have to overcome that fear and say, even if I fail, I will try again. You have to try and try. Even if I make a fool of myself, it's myself. Even if I'm rejected and people say no, fine. I'll look for people who will accept what I'm trying to do. Like I like to keep saying, in Africa, in Nigeria, we have not been able to overcome fear. Okay? We are held bound by fear. We fear the dark. We fear the night. We all manners of superstition. The Western world has overcome fear. That's why they're able to take people to the moon. That's why they're able to fly people with these rockets burning and all of that, shooting at supersonic speed, going to the International Space Center in orbit. But no African has succeeded in overcoming that fear. Just 2 weeks ago, the first black man was in the team of astronauts that went to the International Space Center in the Elon Musk rocket that took them to international space. Okay, and that is because this is somebody who grew up and was brought up. It's an American, though an African American. But if not, generally, Nigerians and Africans have not been able to overcome fear. Just here in Suleja, Nigerians have not been able to climb the Zuma Rock. But not too long ago, some few years ago, some Americans came and scaled over the place in no time. We have a massive hotel built beside the Zuma Rock as a tourist attraction. But up to today, nobody has occupied that building. Nobody has, that hotel has not been run for 1 day, even though it had been furnished and everything. Okay, but it had been left to waste because of people's fear, because of superstition, because of superstition about fears and all of those things. So these are things that we need to overcome. Okay, people like Bill Gates, Thomas Edison, Honda, and the Wright brothers were either failed or were rejected. Bill Gates, I told you about Bill Gates and IBM. Thomas Edison, who created the electric bulb that we enjoy today, tried and failed severally over 10 times until about the 11th and 12th time when he succeeded in building the filament that was able to survive. Then Honda, the popular the car series, car brand in Japan, when they started, they were laughed at. People rejected them. They told them they were not going to make it. But today, Honda is a major brand in Japan and across the world. The Wright brothers have already talked about them. Because of their vision, determination, and their staying power, today we have the jumbo jets all over the place that we are able to use to the benefit of humanity today. Okay, so that is how these things are. All right, thanks. Okay, so that is the problem of fear. Okay, lack of support is another main barrier. Many small businesses lack support in critical areas of need. They include areas like funding, that's financiers, and few financiers are willing to support small scale businesses. We might know so many people who we think are rich and well-to-do, but you'll be surprised when you approach them, they tell you, oh, sorry, we don't have the money. And that is a common story among most people. You know, most people have had that experience. You know, wealthy relations, partners, but they simply tell you they don't have the money. You see them just building houses, buying cars, and all of those. But when you approach them, I need money to start a business, you'll be surprised they'll let you down. Legal and regulatory support. Difficulty in fulfilling registration requirements for companies. In the next few days, we'll be taking a course on business law, registration of businesses, compliance requirements, and all of that. We'll be looking at this in more details, but it's a major challenge that most small businesses face, really. When you want to start a business, you find that how to go about registering your company, the kind of requirements that you need to fulfill, the compliance requirement you need to fulfill. Nigeria is talking about the ease of doing business now because of the many cumbersome ways of going about doing business in the country. Okay. Lately, of course, because of the special attention on ease of doing business, these days you are able to register a business within 24 hours from the ECAC. You might not need the use of a lawyer, and then you're able to do it online from the comfort of your home and office or your sitting room and all of that. So these are some of the issues that have come up lately, but it has been always a major problem. Staying power. Most startup entrepreneurs like the staying power. This is like the determination which we talked about. Okay, so if entrepreneurship is what you really want to go into, you must stay the course and not give up. You have to be patient. Entrepreneurship is not a quick rich strategy. Okay, it requires determination, requires the staying power. It requires that when you face a few challenges, you don't give up. Okay, you stay the course. Okay, and then that is the one way you'll be able to make it. So like determination, staying power is an area that you need to pay attention to. Okay, all right. So we'll now come to the final topic in this paper. It's about sources of funding. Sources of funding for small businesses. What are the sources of funding for small businesses? Okay, we've listed them here. We have equity, we have loans, we have grants, we have cooperative loans, we have crowdfunding. Of course, one of the reasons why we are here is, of course, about finding funding. Okay, so we're looking at that also. Let's start with equity. Equity is an investment made in the shares of a business. Okay, it is made with an understanding that the investor will get a return on their investment and appreciation on the capital that they have invested. Okay, so anytime you go to the stock market, and buy shares in a business, that is an equity investment. You are buying a part of that business, and the money which you bring in, okay, will go into building that business. Okay, is this small trickles from different investors that come together, accumulate to become the major financial instrument, the funds which the businessman requires to build that line of business. Equity is a good source of funding for entrepreneurs, as it is more stable, more long-term in nature, and gives the entrepreneur enough time for the business to take root. What I'm saying basically here is that when people buy equity or invest in a line of business, you know that there is a measure of time scale given to you, because by the time these various sums come in, okay, it will take some while before the business take firm root to mature and then take root. So it is a very good source of funding for people who want to go into entrepreneurship. Okay, so as you are starting, you could consider the possibility of floating your business on the stock market, so that people who believe in it will be able to buy shares, and then of course you have the leverage of having long-term funds before you are able to return the money in terms of dividends and shares to your investors. Equity funding can come from the following sources. It comes from savings, comes from partners, investors, and family. Let's take savings. If you want to start an enterprise, you should learn to set aside savings from whatever little resources you have. Savings take a lot of effort, discipline, and sacrifice to be able to put money aside for business startup. That is a major problem. We all know that savings is not easy in our country today. How much are you earning? The minimum wage is 30,000. Okay, if you're on minimum wage today, how much are you going to set aside for your minimum wage? 5,000, 10,000, then what are you going to live on? What are you going to feed on? What are you going to transport to work? What are you going to use in paying your house rent? So all of these are things that people take into consideration. But the advice that I would like to always give is that no matter how difficult, you need to make the effort. You need to discipline yourself. You need to make the sacrifice. Okay? Team up with your colleagues and then join a cooperative society if you want, or set aside that monthly amount. Okay? Even if it's 3,000, 2,000, or whatever, you are putting in the bank as savings and you don't go back to touch it. That is what savings is all about. Okay? Partners can also bring in their own savings as equity in the business. Here, we're looking at maybe your friends, your relations, those who believe in your line of business, and then who can decide to come and put their own savings, their own money into your business in the form of equity. Okay? Investors. An investor is a person who puts funds into something in order to get a return on the money they've invested. Well, of course, we've looked at that when we talked about people going to the stock market to buy shares in line of business, which you are floating. Yeah. So that's what an investor does. Okay. Then we have those we call the angel investors. These are wealthy private individuals who invest in businesses in exchange for some equity in the company. Angel investors, most times, like we say, are wealthy private individuals. But what they do, how they come in, is that if they recognize that their line of business is something that they are interested in, they come in, help to put the money in. And then, of course, mentor you, guide you, okay, lead you in the right direction, because they have had that experience before. Okay, so the money they are investing is not so much because of what comes back to them, but basically what they will do in terms of assisting you to build you. At the end of it, really, when the business takes full roles and becomes profitable, that is when they begin to reap from their investment. But more important than anything else, it's the fact that the mentoring component, mentoring element, guiding, helping, directing you, that is where angel investors really come in. They don't necessarily have to be people that you need, you know, but people who are within the environment, who believe in the kind of business that you are trying to go into. So that's about that. Partners, I already discussed that. Family and friends. Family and friends are usually the first source of investment for most young startups. And I'm sure it's going to be the same experience with most of you on this program, because I've also had the experience. I have kids who, in graduation, they are simply not interested in looking for work, but they simply want to start their own business along with their friends. They come meet you and say, look, Daddy, we have this business idea. We want to set up this line of business. We are putting money together. Can you give me so that I contribute? My friends and I sourcing the money, and then so that we can invest and build this line of business. That is what most young men do, really. And I want to believe that you also may have tried it. Okay, most times we find that young men like this, young men and women like that, who have started along that line, their parents will naturally want to support them up to a point. And thereafter, when they find that they are not making much inroads, they advise them to go source for funds elsewhere. So that is about family and friends when it comes to sources of funding for small businesses. Okay? All right. Loans. That is why you are here. Okay? Most of us are in this program today because we want to access the AGSMEIS loan scheme. A business loan is money given to an entrepreneur to finance the purchase of an asset or fund the business's recurring expenditure. Loans can either be interest-bearing or non-interest-bearing. In the former, the borrower and the lender agree on the rate. The loan is tenured for a specific period. At the end of the tenure or at maturity, the borrower must repay the loan to the lender together with the interest that's accrued. So what I'm saying is that loans are funds that you access from maybe bank, from friends, from relations, or mostly from banks, for example, and then they come with an interest-bearing factor or non-interest-bearing. Most loans coming from commercial and microfinance banks are interest-bearing, like the current one that you are trying to access. Okay, so here, you as a borrower and then the lender, which is National Microfinance Bank, will agree on a rate. Here we're looking at the rates, that's 5% this year, maybe 9% next year, and then the tenure. We say the 7 years tenure. That's the period within will mature and you'll be expected to repay the loan to the lender together with the interest that has accrued. But then there is also the non-interest bearing loan. Here, these are Islamic-based funding system where interest is not charged on their finances. Okay, they have a way of determining that it's a profit-sharing approach. Nobody asks you to pay any interest on the facility that you are giving. Okay, but that is purely for the non-Islamic banking sector. In Nigeria today, we have the Jazz Bank, the Taj Bank. These are banks that promote and give out loans on a non-interest basis. Right. So loans can be accessed from the following sources. Banks, as I said, banks take in money from depositors and lend at a margin. The microfinance also do the same. But like I said at the beginning of this program, Commercial banks today charge about 26 to 30% on interest. So that is where the challenge is. What kind of work are you going to do? What kind of business are you going to run that you'll be able to take a loan facility at 26% interest rate and then be able to pay and then still break even with the loan that you have taken? That is where the challenge is. And that's where the AGSMEIS loan scheme is more beneficial because of the low interest rate and the fact that there's no collateral to that. Okay, partners can decide to loan money to a business that they have an interest in. The partners agree on the tenure and when the loan will be paid. This is also just like the banking sector, but here it's a lot more informal. Though, of course, you need to put down in writing that this is what you are agreeing to do. You're approaching some partners, people who are interested in funding your business, and then, of course, they are providing you the loans at this rate and then at this maturity payback period. So that's about partners. Okay, grants. Here, grants are funds given to small businesses by donor agencies. Okay, usually donors the donor does not retain an interest in the business. However, to ensure that the money is actually used for the purpose intended, the donor will set up processes to ensure that the project is properly implemented. Here, donor agencies maybe some of them are faith-based international donor agencies like the DFID, the USAID. Okay, most times they don't even give you the money. Just like you said here, what they do is they will provide you the resources, materials to help you set up the business. Okay, and then of course to see you drive and they of course be able to help you, guide you, and direct you, advise you on how to run that business. And most donor organizations are usually predisposed to giving grants to small business who are involved in social enterprise projects. Projects like the one that Cindy Brian just indicated, she's into social enterprise projects. So these are areas that donor agencies are usually very interested in. Okay, not necessarily profit-driven, but projects that satisfy communities, those communities, projects that they identify with. So they help those who have the same line of thinking to see how they can be able to help those communities. We have, of course, grants can be given by government organizations, development partners, family trusts, not-for-profit organizations, wealthy individuals. I've just mentioned earlier that there are international donor agencies like DFID, USAID, which are UK, US-based kind of projects, then non-faith-based institutions, which are also able to provide such facilities. So, sources of grants in Nigeria. SMEDEN is one of them. DFID, which I did indicate just now. Shell Life Wire Funds. Shell Life Wire Funds are given by the Shell Development Company, the IOC International Oil Company based in the Niger Delta area. Here, what they do is they provide funding and support to these young men and women in the Niger Delta area, help them set up their businesses, provide funds to help them set up their businesses, to employ their friends, relations, to take them away from militancy and all manners of destructive activities going on in the Niger Delta area. That is one of the things that Shell Development Corporation has identified and decided that this is an area they can be able to provide support for the young men and women in the Niger Delta area. Etisalat Easy Business Million Grants, T.Y. Anjuma Foundation, Back of Industry, MTN. All these are also providing grants to businesses and then are directly involved in providing support, like the T.Y. Anjuma Foundation, supporting this progress in the Northeast region. All these areas of help, sources of grants in the country today. Yeah. All right, cooperative loans. Cooperative society is an independent group of people who come together to offer mutual support and cooperation to each other. Individuals within the cooperative contribute money, and these funds are either used to fund activities of cooperative, or give out loan to fund individual businesses of interested members of the cooperative. Cooperative societies are very popular in Nigeria. We had the whole concept mostly started in the southwest region of the country, where cooperative societies were quite dominant. And in fact, one grew up to be so massive that it became a major bank in the country. Today it's merged with some other banks in the course of these banking reforms. And if you go to most organizations in Nigeria today, both private and public institutions, you find cooperative societies. Here, individuals in the cooperative contribute their money on a month-to-month basis, and the funds used there could be used to fund the activities of the cooperative in the areas of maybe buying things which they share to cooperative members, or giving out loans to individuals to start their businesses, to meet some of their challenges, their needs. You find people using their money from cooperative to buy cars, to rent house, to pay school fees, and a host of other things, to buy land and the rest of those things. That is what cooperative societies are able to do for people within their organizations. Okay, crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is the process of raising funds from individuals through the internet. The entrepreneur approaches the individuals through a recognized platform and make a pitch about their products or services. Individuals send in money either for a reward or for a return. Crowdfunding is actually a new phenomenon which is gaining ground, and it's very, very prevalent these days across the internet. Okay. And then, of course, some of them have led to people burning their fingers, like the MLM projects, which turn out to be Ponzi schemes. But others, of course, are quite well organized, like the M Global or Alliance products. This company derives from Philippines, and they have this crowdfunding project where they bring in they sell products along the line, and then you are able to bring in people as downlines, and then as they contribute their money, you who brought them in are also able to earn money. And so we have so many of their products today in the household materials, toiletries, medicine, wellness drugs, and all of those things. The same also with the Forever products. All of those things are crowdfunding projects. Okay, and then, of course, we have many who are also involved in supporting maybe school hostels and things like that, and contribute money. And as you become profitable, those who have made contributions are able to also get some benefit in the process. Okay, we have popular ones like the Crowd9 crowdfunding companies, and they do a whole lot of things, and people are able to access them, put in their money on the internet for the purpose of that. Some, of course, are social enterprise projects where individuals can identify a project of interest to them in the community, and then they float that idea, pitch that idea on the internet, and those who want to support that kind of project will contribute their money towards helping that community. So all these are crowdfunding ideas, and then, of course, sources of funding for small businesses. Okay, as you bring in people on downline platforms, for example, the money you earn could now go into setting up your business or funding your business along the line. So these are the various sources of funding for small businesses. Right. So we have come to the end of this paper. It's taken quite some time, but I want to thank you immensely for being part of this, the first day of our training today. So we'll not take questions and answers before we close the class. The day is well spent, so that you can go and then continue with your jobs also. Okay. All right. So let's. There are some chats. You are echoing, and I can hear you. And ask everyone, waits. No, I don't. No, I don't. Just listening. All right. Baku, I can hear. The mics have been unmuted. If you have any question, you can ask your question before we close. Come to the end of the lecture, so let's have any question you have. Yeah, all right. And ask Chinwe.
Yes. My question is on grants. There's something I don't understand about grants.
Okay.
when you obtain a grant, do you have to pay back?
No, you don't have to pay back a grant. A grant is given to you as part of the contribution of the donor who believes in the project that you are trying to pursue to assist you in accomplishing the goals of that project. And like I said, most times grants don't really come in the form of cash. It could come in the form of materials, it could come in the form of advice, come in the form of equipment and things like that. On few occasions, they give you the cash to be able to support your working capital to buy one or two things. But most of the major grants actually goes into equipment and materials. That's the way I think it works.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question? Vivo 1906. Anthony Ifani. Sheila Gorom. You have a question? Zira? Zira, you've been with us from the beginning. Any question? Open your mic and speak to us. Chukwe, Mary Rose. Chukwe Mary Rose, you have a question for us?
Hello? Do you hear me now, sir?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Not really that I was with you from the beginning. I joined though I logged in, but was kind of busy where I'm processing the form in the office at Otaku.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I didn't get most things. I don't when we are saying on entrepreneur, someone that jump from that like that. But I don't really have a question, but if I should chip in, something I would have liked to be clarified is when you said a loan can be of interest or no interest, depending on the agreement that you had from the beginning. Am I correct of that statement, sir?
Okay, yeah. I did say that loans can be interest bearing and non-interest bearing.
Yes,
the
sir.
interest bearing loans are basically from commercial enterprises, okay?
Okay.
From your banks,
Yes.
from your microfinance banks. Then there's a non-interest bearing. The non-interest bearing based on Islamic banking rules. That one they don't charge you interest. Okay, so if you go to Jais Bank, Taj Bank, and you collect a loan from them, there is no interest on it. And then, of course, the profit that you make, there is a way they share it. They have their own philosophy of sharing profits, and then there's no interest on it. If the project first, there's a way also that you all collectively share in the failure of that business, because you're able to share both the assets and then the liabilities.
Okay, very, very clear now.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yes, sir.
Right. Are you still in our office or you have left?
No, I just left the office. I'm done with, but we just left there not quite long with my sister.
Okay, I think I saw you when you came in before I started the class.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Welcome. Faith, Faith, you have a question? Yeah, Zira?
But most of the things that we did not get, like we weren't able to start from the beginning, is there any way we can read up with this stuff?
Sure. You can still watch this video. It's on YouTube now, and we're going to post it so that you can watch it.
Okay, you're posting it on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube right now. As we're talking, it's streaming live now. And then we're going to send the hard copy, the slides, to the training platform, to the WhatsApp training platform, so you can be able to access it on the WhatsApp platform.
Okay, there is no material like something to screenshot or post something online like that. It's just to be watched.
No, I've just said there are slides, the hard copy slides, yeah. We're going to post it on the WhatsApp platform so that you can go through it. If you want, you can download it and then print if you want.
Okay.
All right.
That's fine, sir. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Yes. All right. Faith Quiet, Faith Vivo 1906. All right, so, okay, you're muted again. You're muted. All right, Faith, go ahead. If you have a question before we close.
Okay.
Okay, Faith says
Can you hear
no,
me?
I don't. Yeah, I can hear you, Faith. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Faith. Speak up. I can hear you.
No, I just want to. Okay. Okay. Sorry. I just want to ask if it's possible for every class to be recorded, because I feel it to be very beneficial for everyone, especially for those who might not be able to like come in on class on time. I
Yeah,
don't know
that
if
was
it's
what I just
possible
explained to
for
Zira
every
now.
Zoom class.
Yeah, that's what I just explained to
Okay.
Zira now. That as we speak,
Okay.
it's streaming online now on YouTube. At the end of it, you will have a copy of it on the video on YouTube, and you can go and access it. And then we have
Okay.
the hard copies, which we place on the WhatsApp training platform for you to also go through. You can download and print if you want, or you can just go through it on your device. Okay?
Okay. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Okay, welcome. All right, Vivo 1906, we don't have your name. You have any question? Vivo 1906. All right, if there is no question, let me thank you all for being a part of our day, our first day. We started with a large class of about 12, but it looks like we've ended up with 6 now. But all the same, we thank you for making up our day. We'll convene here again tomorrow morning by 10 to take the next class, which is on feasibility planning and business plan. Feasibility studies, sorry, and business plan. By 10 tomorrow, we converge. We'll also start with a pre-lecture quiz, and then after that, a post-lecture quiz. We'll also be posting the post-lecture quiz shortly for you to attempt. Having said that, thank you and have a wonderful day ahead of you. And then we'll see you again tomorrow when we convene. Bye-bye.